Have you ever met someone whose presence felt like fire? Not a gentle flame that warms the room, but a blaze that consumes everything it touches. You wonder why a man's gaze lingers too long, why his voice carries a tremor when he speaks your name, why his attention feels less like love and more like hunger. What is it that makes some men orbit a woman as if she is the center of their universe, while she herself feels increasingly invisible within that orbit? Before we dive in, let us know in the comments where you are watching from. We would love to see how far this conversation is reaching. Now let us go deeper. Obsession often disguises itself as devotion. At first it feels intoxicating. The late-night messages, the constant reassurance that you are the only one he thinks about, the way he insists that he cannot breathe without you. It is tempting to believe that such intensity is proof of extraordinary love. But if you look closely, the truth is far more unsettling. His fixation is rarely about you. It is about him. It is about what he has lost, what he has never faced, what lies unresolved in the silence of his own soul. Think about it. When a man tells you that you are his everything, what is he really saying? Is it love or is it desperation? Does he cherish your individuality, or is he clinging to an image of you that exists only in his imagination? Carl Jung once suggested that the human psyche carries an inner feminine, an anima, that a man must eventually confront and integrate. If he refuses, he unconsciously projects it outward. And when that happens, the woman in front of him ceases to be herself. She becomes a mirror for the forgotten parts of his soul. This is why his obsession feels heavy. It is not you he sees. It is the myth he has carved deep inside, the savior he longs for, the mother he never healed from, the goddess who will fix his fractures. He cannot see you clearly, because clarity would demand he face his own abyss. Instead, he clutches at you, mistaking his inner hunger for love. Have you ever felt that shift? At first his attention feels flattering, but with time it begins to suffocate. The flowers on your doorstep feel less like gifts and more like shackles. His constant presence, once comforting, becomes invasive. You realize you are not being loved. You are being consumed. He does not admire your freedom. He fears it. He does not want your wholeness. He wants your submission. The Stoic philosophers warned of this long before psychology gave us the language for it. Marcus Aurelius wrote of mastering one's attachments. Epictetus urged the necessity of detaching from that which lies beyond control. Obsession is the refusal of this wisdom. It is the collapse of self-mastery. A man who has not anchored himself in his own center grasps at others to avoid drowning in his emptiness. And when he chooses you as his lifeline, you do not feel lifted. You feel dragged under. Here lies the cruel paradox. What he calls passion is often fear in disguise. He fears being alone. He fears the silence of his own mind. He fears the reflection he would meet if he stopped projecting his needs onto you, and so he clings. But his clinging is not devotion. It is avoidance. Some women mistake this intensity for proof of worth. He cannot stop thinking about me, they whisper as if it were a crown. But obsession is not a crown. It is a cage. You become less of yourself, and more of the stage upon which his unconscious battles play out. Have you ever noticed how obsession rarely feels gentle? It feels like chains. It feels like a haunting gaze that will not let you breathe. If you have ever found yourself in this position, you know how paradoxical it feels. There is a sweetness in being desired, but there is also a suffocation in being smothered. You feel adored and erased all at once. He tells you that you are his entire world, and yet the more he clings, the less truly seen you feel. Because obsession is never about knowing who you are. It is about using you as the vessel for what he refuses to know about himself. Let us pause here. Does this sound familiar? Have you ever mistaken someone's desperate need for love? Have you ever told yourself that the way he held on must mean you are valuable, when deep down you felt unseen? This is where the danger lies. When you confuse obsession with love, you may begin to sacrifice yourself piece by piece. You may give up your freedom, your boundaries, your individuality, all for the sake of sustaining his illusion. He does not see it, but you feel it. You become smaller, more silent, less radiant, and every time you question it, you hush yourself with the thought, but he loves me. No, what he feels is not love. What he feels is a void. Jung explained that obsession erupts when a man has not claimed his inner feminine. She does not disappear. She erupts distorted and projected onto living women. That is why his gaze feels both worshipful and consuming. He is not looking at you. He is staring at the silhouette of his anima, larger than life, impossible to embody. And because no human woman can live up to the perfection of an archetype, his worship soon turns to demand, and his demand to obsession. Look carefully, and you will see the signs. His words are urgent, his presence trembling. His affection is less about cherishing you, and more about silencing the emptiness inside him. You do not feel honored. You feel needed in a way that is suffocating, and if you give in, you risk becoming the caretaker of his wounds rather than the partner of his growth. Does it sound romantic to be someone's everything? Perhaps in movies, but in life, being someone's everything means you cannot be yourself. It means your worth is reduced to how well you keep his shadows at bay. And when you falter, as you must because you are human, his devotion may turn quickly into resentment. Have you noticed how often the obsessive gaze can shift into cruelty when the illusion cracks? This is the cruel cycle. A man who refuses to face his inner darkness will bind a woman into his narrative. She becomes the rescuer, the healer, the eternal savior of wounds she never caused. And she, often longing herself to feel valued, may confuse this role with love. But the longer she plays it, the more she disappears. What if you stepped back and asked yourself, why should my worth be measured by how tightly someone clings to me instead of how clearly I am seen? Would his words still feel flattering, or would you recognize the weight of his desperation? Here is the painful truth. Obsession is not about the woman. It is about the man's unresolved fractures. His fixation is evidence of his unclaimed soul, not of your beauty, power, or value. And yet society often conditions women to equate being desired with being worthy. From childhood, we are told that a man's pursuit is a compliment, that his refusal to let go is a sign of passion. But look closer and you see the illusion. His inability to release you is not the mark of divine love. It is the mark of inner captivity. A man enslaved to his unconscious does not love you. He uses you. He turns you into a mirror of what he cannot bear to face in himself. And while he declares you his salvation, you find yourself orbiting his chaos instead of standing in love. Can you see the danger now? When you allow obsession to masquerade as devotion, you begin to betray yourself. You silence the voice that tells you, I feel suffocated. You rationalize the unease in your chest. You convince yourself that enduring his intensity is the price of being cherished. But every day that you do this, you vanish a little more. And here is the secret no one tells you. Obsession is not love at all. Love does not consume. Love creates space. Love does not erase your individuality. Love honors it. Love does not demand submission. Love walks beside you in freedom. So ask yourself, when you feel that suffocating fire, do you want to be adored like an archetype, or do you want to be loved as the whole and imperfect human that you are? The answer to that question may be the seed of your liberation, because once you recognize obsession for what it truly is, fear, hunger, avoidance, the spell begins to break. His chains cannot bind you if you refuse to mistake them for gold. And the moment you choose to see clearly, you begin the journey back to yourself. There comes a moment when the sweetness of his intensity begins to sour. At first, you told yourself his constant attention was proof that you mattered. His voice on the phone late at night, trembling with urgency, sounded like devotion. His endless words of adoration felt like blessings. But as the weeks turn to months, a different truth begins to rise from beneath the surface. His obsession is not about cherishing you. It is about silencing the emptiness that roars within him. The more he grasps for you, the less you are seen. The more he surrounds you, the more invisible you become. What began as passion now feels like suffocation, and you start to realize something painful. You are no longer a person in his eyes. You are a vessel, a container for his unhealed longings, a stage for his private battles. Carl Jung warned that when a man neglects the feminine within, it does not vanish. It erupts. She bursts into his waking life as fantasy, as projection, as desperate attachment to the woman who seems to embody what he cannot claim inside himself. He stares at you, but he does not see you. He sees the goddess, the rescuer, the savior who will mend his broken pieces. And because no living woman can embody the perfection of an archetype, his worship eventually twists into demand. His demand twists into pressure. And his pressure evolves into obsession. Have you noticed the paradox? The more he claims he loves you, the less capable he is of loving. True love requires freedom. Obsession destroys freedom. True love sees the whole person. Obsession erases the person. Love honors individuality. Obsession devours it. This is why his voice, once tender, begins to sound desperate. Why his eyes, once adoring, begin to feel like a weight. He does not want to lose you. Not because he truly knows you, but because without you he must face the silence within. And so he clings to you as a drowning man clings to driftwood. But here lies the danger. If you mistake his hunger for devotion, you may allow yourself to be consumed. You may believe that his desperation is the proof of your worth. Society has trained women to hear the words, "I cannot live without you," as the height of romance. But think carefully. What does it mean if a man cannot live without you? It means he has not learned to live with himself. And what happens when you become the lifeline for a man who refuses to stand on his own soul? You carry the weight of both lives. You become mother and lover, rescuer and caretaker, healer and prison guard. You are elevated to a pedestal, but that pedestal is a cage. It keeps you trapped in a role you did not choose. Do you feel the paradox? His words make you feel extraordinary, yet his presence makes you feel small. He calls you his everything, yet in being his everything you begin to lose yourself. His fire flatters you at first, but soon you see it for what it is. Not warmth, but hunger. Not devotion, but desperation. Look closer at the obsessive man and you will see traces of his boyhood wounds. Perhaps a mother who was distant or unpredictable. Perhaps a father who was absent or tyrannical. These fractures remain hidden in his psyche, unresolved, unspoken, yet always present. When he grows into a man, that hunger disguises itself as romance. He brings flowers. He speaks poetry. But beneath the surface, it is still the cry of a wounded child. And when you enter his orbit, you feel it. You feel adored and burdened all at once, as if you have become the caretaker of a boy disguised as a man. This is why his presence feels paradoxical, intoxicating yet suffocating, flattering yet frightening. Somewhere inside you sense you are not being loved as yourself. You are being asked to heal wounds that are not yours to heal. Pedestals are prisons. They appear golden, but they do not allow you to move freely. You are expected to remain flawless, to remain savior, to remain the eternal source of his strength. And if you falter, as all humans must, he may turn from worship to resentment in an instant. This is why obsession is dangerous. It is not love, but bondage. It binds both the man and the woman into illusions. The man becomes enslaved to his unconscious, and the woman becomes enslaved to his projections. But liberation begins the moment you see clearly. You begin to understand that his fixation says nothing about your beauty, your power, or your uniqueness. It speaks only of his refusal to face himself. His inability to release you is not divine love. It is captivity. His endless declarations of need are not proof of your worth. They are evidence of his unhealed void. The Stoic philosophers understood this centuries ago. Epictetus warned that to hinge your peace upon another person is to become a slave. Seneca said that he who depends upon another for happiness has already surrendered freedom. The obsessive man embodies this truth. He has already surrendered his sovereignty, and in his desperation, he seeks to bind you into the same chains. Consider what happens if you mistake this dynamic for love. You rationalize the unease in your chest. You tell yourself his intensity is the price of being cherished. You hush your intuition, even when it whispers that something feels wrong. And day by day you vanish into his drama. But obsession cannot create intimacy. It can only create dependency. Obsession does not honor the other's soul. It devours it. Obsession does not bring two people together. There it swallows one into the hunger of the other. So what happens when a woman awakens to this truth? She begins to step back. She withdraws her energy from his unconscious game. She refuses to carry wounds that are not hers to carry. And when she does, the spell begins to break. The obsessive man loses his hold. Not because he has changed, but because she has. It is not easy. To see that what you thought was love was never love at all is to grieve. It is to mourn the illusion you once clung to. But grief is not the end. Grief is the doorway into freedom. Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this and you will find strength." The woman who remembers this truth reclaims her sovereignty. She cannot control his hunger, his projections, his chains, but she can control whether she consents to carry them. And the moment she withdraws her consent, she is free. This freedom is not bitterness. It is not coldness. It is not the shutting down of love. On the contrary, it is the opening of the heart to itself. It is the remembering that her worth exists before and beyond his gaze. She no longer needs to be worshipped as an archetype. She no longer needs to be clung to as a lifeline. She no longer needs obsession to prove her value. She has chosen herself. And here lies a deeper truth. By refusing to play the role of his unconscious projection, she offers him the rarest gift, the chance to finally face himself. It may drive him into despair, or it may awaken him to his own path of individuation. Either way, she has chosen truth over illusion. She has chosen sovereignty over chains. For the woman who has tasted obsession and survived it knows this. Love cannot be born from hunger. Love cannot be sustained by desperation. Love is not found in chains. Love is found only when two whole beings, having faced their shadows, stand together in freedom. Imagine that moment. She steps forward, radiant and unbroken, no longer the vessel of another's wounds, but the keeper of her own soul. She knows now that worth is not measured by how tightly someone clings, but by how deeply she chooses herself. She has reclaimed her fire, and in doing so she has remembered the one truth that obsession tried to bury. The woman who knows her worth does not chase, and she does not cling. She chooses.